friends, it is Stasia and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be going over the month of January. I actually had a decent reading month, so I'm very excited to be able to chat with you guys about all of the books I read. Some hits, some not, so that's fine. We're gonna do things how we usually do it. I'm gonna go into my book haul, and then I will go over some stats, and then all of the books that I read in the order that I read them. So first, let's go into all of the books that I received one way or another, whether it be from giveaways, publishers, or anything like that. So the first book I received was None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I have read a couple Lisa Jewell and I have enjoyed them, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. Then I got The Lodge by Kayla Olson. I actually read this in the month of January, so my thoughts will come on this in a couple minutes. Then I got Wedding Dashers by Heather McBreen. I have no clue what this one is about, but I did see good reviews on it when it was publishing week, so I'm excited to get into it when I get the chance. Then I got Spiral. I'm hesitant on this one because Rylan read the first book in the series, Collide, and didn't love it, so I'm not entirely sure when I'll get to this one. Then I got the new cover of Smooth as Whiskey by Lyra Parrish. This is the Valentine, Texas series. Gorgeous edges. She recently, I think, re-released these with these new covers. This is book 4, and I have read the first 3, and I really enjoyed them all, so I'm excited to get to this one. I would just need to somehow get my hands on the other 3 editions. I read them via ebook, but I would like to have them all. Here's the covers of all of them. They're all really, really cute, so I would like to read this maybe in February, not entirely sure, but it is the last book, not the last book of the series, but the most recent release of the Valentine, Texas series, and I haven't read it yet. Then I got The Love Lyric by Christina Forrest. I don't know much about this one specifically. Oh my gosh, the font is huge. I love that. But I have heard of the author's other books and heard good reviews on it. And then the last book I received was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have not read from the author yet. I've heard amazing things about the author and their previous other books. I have one of their other books on my February TBR for the Mounting Hearts Book Club. I do think that I want to try to get this one in as well, just because the premise sounds so good. So there's that. In the month of January, I only bought myself 3 books, which is my book of the month box. So we'll go over what I got in book of the month. So the first book I got is A Killing Code by Kate Alice Marshall. I keep buying her books and I've not read any of them yet, so it's very interesting, but this is the first book I got. Then I got Is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousins, another author whom I've not read from but have heard of, and eventually I will read it. And then the last book I got in my book of the month box is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I have been hearing such good things about this book. Everybody's loving it. Everybody's giving it 5 stars. It is a lot bigger than I had originally thought it was going to be. But I am reading this in the month of February with Rylan and Aylin, so we'll see how that goes. Alright, so those are all of the books that I accumulated in the month of January. Now we will go into the books that I read, but first we will go into some stats. The past few years I only had 3 sections, I guess you could call them, for my format breakdown, but this year I'm going to have 4, so we'll get into that in a second. So in the month of January is actually a pretty good reading month for me. Not like my best reading month at all, but it was very off to a good start for the year. So I read a total of 8 books, and that came out to 2,747 pages. My format breakdown: 3 ebooks, 1 physical, and 4 multi-format books. So it was either physical and ebook, physical and audio and ebook. One of those. So instead of just doing like audio/audio mix, I just put in an entire multi-format. So those were my formats. And as for my genres, I read 5 romance, 2 thrillers, and 1 contemporary. So that is the stats. now let's get into all of the books that I read in the order that I read them. I actually own 7 of these books physically, which I'm very excited about. So only one of them I didn't have a physical book for, but that's okay. I really enjoyed getting some books off of my physical TBR, and I'm going to unhaul a couple, so that is that. Alright, so the first book I read is the only book that I do not have a physical copy of, and that is All the Missing Pieces by Catherine Cowles. I gave this book 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. So this book follows Ridley and Colt. Ridley is a podcaster, and she goes to this small town to kind of see what's going on, because Ridley's sister vanished one day, and after her vanishing, she kind of got into the whole watching of the crime, and she thinks that she knows who took her sister, and she goes to the small town of Shady Cove. So she goes to Shady Cove because the first victim of who she thinks caught her sister lives there. But the first victim is alive. They escaped. But she really is like reclusive now. She doesn't leave her house and all of that sort of stuff. So Ridley goes to the small town to kind of see like what this case is all about, and to kind of try to speak to people and get some answers, potentially catch this guy that she thinks is still out there. So when she's there, she runs into Colt, who is the town's broody sheriff, and instantly they don't really get off on the right foot, but there is that sort of connection where they are kind of both intrigued in each other. So we kind of follow them as Ridley is trying to convince Colt to work with her to catch this person. But Colt is kind of trying to leave the past in the past and kind of move on, because he has already tried to make amends with that. And it is one of those cases that he never got to solve, so he doesn't really like to think about it much. So, like I said, I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I thought that Ridley and Colt were an amazing pair. I loved the aspect of the true crime podcast, and I just thought Ridley was just so strong-willed. She was so focused, and seeing her kind of soften with Colt, but not too much, and always keeping Colt on his toes while Colt is slowly starting to care more and more for her, even though in the beginning he absolutely did not like her at all. I loved the mystery aspect. I thought there was a very well balanced between the potential romance of Ridley and Colt along with the mystery that they're trying to solve. I don't think that either of them was on the back burner. I think that it was both evenly distributed, and you kind of cared for both parts of the story. The side characters were also fun. I also did not see the resolution of the mystery, like the final reveal. I wasn't expecting the person who did it to be the person who did it, so that was also a very nice surprise. So that is the first book I read, and I gave that book 5 stars. The next book I read, I have an entire reading vlog on, so I won't go too far into my thoughts on this book, but that was Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I ended up giving this book also 5 stars. This book follows an author named Grady. After his wife's disappearance slash death, he kind of just stops writing. So his agent kind of sends him to this island because she thinks that he could get some writing done and kind of focus there. So we kind of follow Grady as he goes to this island that is already eerie from the start, and he's just trying to get his mojo back to be able to write. So like I said, I gave it 5 stars. Very eerie, a bit of a slow burn, lots of questions that come up throughout the story, but overall I liked it. Like I said, I do have a reading vlog if you want more in-depth thoughts on this. The next book I read was The Lodge by Kayla Olson. This book I gave 4 stars. This book follows Alex. She is a ghostwriter, and she is ghostwriting a memoir for this guy named Sebastian, who used to be in a boy band. Her house is very distracting right now. Her sister just moved in and she can't focus. So Sebastian offers to send her to a ski resort to help her focus. When she's at the ski resort, she runs into a ski instructor named Tyler, who convinces her to take a class with him and kind of take advantage of the situation that she's in, being at this elite ski resort and also working. So we follow Alex and Tyler as they go through that, and things are just not quite as they seem. So like I said, I gave this book 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed it. There is like multimedia aspects. If you can see, there's like tweets and stuff. There's also like text messages. So I like the mixed media aspect. I really liked Alex as a character. I wish we got a little bit more from Tyler, but that's okay. I really liked the ghostwriting and the overall drama of the story. It was pretty fast paced, kept me engaged. I like seeing Alex get to know Sebastian, who she's ghostwriting for, through like these different voice memos and stuff. I liked seeing Tyler and Alex go on like different adventures and the skiing. So overall, it was a nice time. I didn't love the ending and I didn't love the side characters, mainly Alex's sister, but I don't think we were meant to like her anyways, so it's fine. But overall, I had a great time and I did enjoy it. The next book I read was Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter. I gave this book a 3.5. This book follows Izzy. When we first start the book, she is currently running late for her first day on her new job. She is in Starbucks and they were just taking forever. So when they call her exact drink for a girl named Amy, she decides that it would be okay for her to take the drink because this Amy girl did not claim her drink after being called 3 times, and Izzy ordered the exact same thing. So she gets this drink, she turns around and actually runs into our main guy, Blake. They have a bit of a meet cute. They're running at Starbucks. They exchange numbers thinking that it won't be anything super big, like maybe they'll see each other later in the week and make plans and stuff. So Izzy is now at her job and she's taking a tour of the building, and of course she goes to meet the VP, who ends up being Blake. Blake is very confused because she is introduced to him as Izzy, and he's just like, I thought your name was Amy, and that just sets off an entire thing. Blake not liking or trusting Izzy, and yeah, it becomes a whole thing. So we follow them as they kind of learn to work together, and then they end up just becoming like friends and don't go any further because they know their roles and like he is her boss. So they become friends for a while until they can't be friends anymore, essentially. So like I said, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I just didn't love our main characters. I wasn't super sold on the romance. I liked the concept of like the workplace friends to lovers trope. Sometimes the way that they spoke to each other was really weird. I also didn't like Izzy's nickname for Blake, which was Mr. Chest, because she ran into his chest, whatever. So I didn't love that. Overall, I thought the story was fun. Nothing to take super seriously. It was quick to read, so that was that. The next book I read was The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. I read this for the Mending Hearts book club, so it is tabbed and fully annotated. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This book follows Lennox. She is an advocate for the reservations. Her mother went missing at a young age, so she wanted to continue her mother's legacy, and she really cares for the reservations and politics. Not really politics, but like going against politicians, I guess, and keeping her land and everything safe. So at a protest, she runs into a guy who essentially takes like a dog bite for her, and then they end up getting thrown in jail together, and then they go their separate ways. They don't think that they'll ever run into each other ever again. So the man she ends up running into is Maxim, and she doesn't really know who he is. She doesn't know his last name or anything like that. So she thinks that he'll never see her again. They never think that they'll meet again until like 4 years later. They end up running into each other in Amsterdam after Lennox has just graduated, and they decide that they're gonna have a week together because after this week they both have other things that they need to figure out for their career and things like that. So they have a week. They say that they're gonna walk away at the end, and then it ends up not being as easy as they originally thought. This book spans many years. I believe it does like a 4-year jump and then like a 10-year jump. So after they walk away from each other in that week, for that week in Amsterdam, then they don't run into each other again until like 10 years later or something. So like I said, I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I liked Lennox and Maxim for the most part. I felt like some of their interactions just didn't need to happen, and it was a lot of like back and forth, and then when they finally decided that they could be together, then the book pretty much ends, which I get it. It's a duet, so you have to like read book 2 to figure out what's going on, which will be my first book in February. So book 2, The Rebel King, will be in my February wrap up. Just saying, I am reading book 2. I just ran out of time in January. So like I said, 4 stars. I thought it was interesting. I liked the conversations that they had because Maxim is a like climate change, like that's his job. So he goes to like different places to research all of climate change, and Lennox is making a name for herself to help like all these people get into office and all of that sort of thing. I don't really know the correct terminology for what's going on. But I was sold on their relationship. I just thought that there was like a lot of ups and downs, and I felt like it just got repetitive after a certain point. But the conversations were nice. I did enjoy our time with the side characters. The story moved very, very fast, a lot faster than I thought I was going to read it. And overall, it was a nice time. So I enjoyed it. The next 2 books are in a vlog together. If you watch my January TBR, I started my whole like unwrap books project thing, and the 2 books that I picked from there were The Immortalist and Tell Me Lies. So I will not tell you guys my ratings on either of these books. I was just gonna give you guys a quick synopsis, and then you guys can go watch my vlog if you would like my thoughts on these. I would just say it wasn't as successful of a vlog as I thought it would be. So first is The Immortalist. The Immortalist by Chloe Benjamin follows 4 siblings. When they are younger, in like the 1960s something, they decide to go see a lady who can apparently tell you the date that you will pass. So all 4 of these siblings go, they all talk to the lady, but they never talk about it ever again. They're like, don't tell us the date, don't tell us whatever she told you. We can't trust her, essentially, is what they say. So that happens in the beginning, and then we follow each kid's like story. Each sibling has their own part and their own story, and we just follow their life and what happens after they get this prediction from this lady, how they chose to live, and whether or not she was right about their time. And then Tell Me Lies by Carola, not sure, Lovering, follows our girl Lucy and our guy Steven over many, many years. When Lucy is a freshman in college, she goes to a party and she runs into Steven. He isn't said to be the most attractive guy, but he's very like charming, so he kind of hooks girls in that way, and Lucy ends up being one of the girls that he hooks with his nice words. This book basically follows them as they have a very extensive on and off relationship. We watch them kind of grow up from Lucy being a freshman in college to then graduating and trying to go on with her life. So they lose communication a few times, and then they find each other again, and that's pretty much what this book is about. It's basically following the story of Lucy and Steven and whether or not they can make things work or what their story is. So there is that. And then the last book that I read in the month of January is Cross My Heart by Megan Collins. I gave this book 4 stars. So this book follows Rosie. Rosie got a heart transplant about a year ago. from a donor. So a year has passed. She realizes that, you know, she really wants to make the most out of her life. So she uses this website called Donor Connect. And this basically connects the donor family and the recipient anonymously. So they can chat, but they don't know who each other is until they like approve of their information being shared. So Rosie ends up messaging Morgan on Donor Connect. Morgan is the husband of Daphne, and Daphne passed and she was the donor of Rosie's new heart. So as Rosie and Morgan are talking, Rosie actually already knew who he was because he's kind of like a local celebrity. He's an author and she's read his books, sort of thing. So she knew who he was. He does not know who Rosie is, but we follow them as they talk, and then things take a turn. There are text messages, there are emails, maybe if I can find one. Yeah, so there's like emails to each other, and yeah. So I will say I had no clue what I was expecting going into this book. I read one of the author's other books and didn't love it, but I just wanted to see what this one was all about. So the first like half, I didn't know that this book was split up into like part 1 and part 2. So the first half is very like domestic suspense, mystery, and then something happens that leads into part 2, and part 2 is like an entire, not different mystery, it's still kind of like the same sort of thing, but a completely different aspect than what we were expecting. So part 1 gives us like the breakdown, and people are suspicious of everyone. Everyone's trying to figure out everybody's intention. And then part 2 is kind of figuring it all out. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was fun. It kept me on my toes. It was very twisty. Some of it was a bit long where I'm kind of like, all right, let's like kind of get to the point. But the payoff was nice. Even until the like last sentence, I'm like, all right, you know, that's just how thrillers end. But overall, I enjoyed watching Rosie. I didn't guess the ending. I know some people did, but I didn't. So I was very like, leading up to it, I was like, all right, it's probably this. And then when we got to the scene where everything was happening, I was like, oh, I missed it. But before like they actually revealed everything, I was like, okay, it's this person. But I didn't get it until we were already there, sort of thing. I don't know if that makes sense. But overall, I loved it. I thought that it was very engaging. It was very twisty. It was not what I was expecting, especially from the first half to the second half. They're almost like different stories, but not, they're just different vibes, but same character sort of thing. And yeah, so I enjoyed my time with it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and that was that. Those were all of the 8 books that I read in the month of January. I thought that it was a pretty good reading month for me. I read a lot of good books, so that's always nice. Yeah, so let me know how your January went. If you made it this far, you can go ahead and comment a book stack emoji if you would like, just to let me know that you were here. Or you can let me know your favorite read or least favorite reads of January so that I can add more to my TBR, even though I shouldn't. But that is all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!